Just walk away. Just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.
Hello everybody, welcome back to MGTOW Chats. This is episode number 83. I'm your host, Ayam Sirias. As always, Lamprey is with me tonight, and we have a very special guest. It's Dr. E. Michael Jones. He was a former professor. He is now an author with more books than I can mention, although there will be links to his channel where you can purchase his books if you choose to. And he is also the editor at culturewars.com. Did I get that all right, Dr. Jones?
Yes, sir. Yes, you did.
Perfect. Great. It's great to have you. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, now I want to, before we get into it, I would like to let the audience know that I came onto your work through my co-host, Nick, who will go by Nick tonight. It was him about a year ago that said, hey, you really need to listen to some of this E. Michael Jones stuff. So yeah, I've only been really getting into your stuff for the past 6 months, but it's profound, and a lot of people, I think, believe the same thing, and I'm very happy to be able to share it, especially the concept of logos. I have recently purchased one of Dr. Jones's books. It hasn't arrived yet. It's Libido Dominandi, and maybe we can get a little bit into that as it is more related to MGTOW content. But before we get started, I think, Nick, you wanted to start off with some questions.
Well, I just wanted to share a story. Dr. Jones, I'd like to share a bit about myself on how I discovered your work before getting into the meat of our discussion. I stumbled upon a chat of yours while I was killing time in a dingy coffee shop playing with my phone during my stint living in Asia. You were talking about your book, Slaughter of Cities, and during your discussion, the image of a photo of my grandfather while young came to my mind. The photo happens to be of him on top of a pile of rubble up against a Brooklyn brownstone. On the facade of this brownstone, written in big letters, said, "We never saw it coming." This is in reference to Robert Moses' work in the building the New York State Parkways, which cut right through his neighborhood. Fast forward about 15 years after that, my grandfather migrated out to Long Island, where now what is left of an Italian-American culture is under a full-blown attack by various entities and factions. So your storytelling about the breakup of ethnic communities, along with all your other work, left such a big impression on me that the Bible has migrated its way out of my closet and now sits on my nightstand. And with that being said, I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Oh, well, maybe to get started, Dr. Jones, what I'd like you to do, because we have a small channel, I'm not sure how many of our listeners are familiar with who you are, but maybe you can explain a little bit about, define for us culture war and logos, as maybe our viewers aren't aware of that yet.
Okay. Biographically, I grew up in Philadelphia. I was born into an Irish neighborhood, an Irish parish in North Philadelphia. In 1954, the blacks crossed Lehigh Avenue on their march up Broad Street, and my family left and moved to what was a suburb, even though it was still inside the city limits. Years later, I began to realize that I was a guinea pig in an experiment that no one told me about. Right. I grew up in that neighborhood. Now I went to a Catholic school, so now people in the class were, instead of just all being Irish, they were Irish, Polish, Italian, and German for the most part. And when you have that type of mixture, you're trying to look for some type of common denominator. And what I realized later was that even though it was a Catholic school, we were supposed to think of ourselves now as white, because that was the whole point of the move. The people, the ethnics, were moved out of their neighborhoods, moved to the suburbs as a form of Americanization. They had to buy a car, They had to watch television. They spent all their time getting drilled into their minds what it meant to be an American. And as a result, they lost their identity. And as a result, the church, although seemingly strong, lost its ability to communicate to its people. Because before that time, they talked the ethnic languages of the people that lived there. Every city in the north and the east was basically a colony, a series of neighborhoods, which were basically colonies of people from Europe who lived in different types of neighborhoods. And so, weakened by this, I'm telling you my story, but I could tell you the story of people who are calling me as well, because it's the same story.
Right.
This could be Maureen's story. This is the lady who called me recently and talked to me because she was in Boston, but it's the same story. She grew up on a street where everybody was Irish and Catholic. The Negro proxy warriors came, ethnically cleansed the neighborhood. She went to the suburbs, and at that point, she began to feel deracinated, uprooted, and as a result, vulnerable to cultural influences. And the cultural influence that made the biggest impression on her at that time was Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
And Madonna was, in a sense, created for that cultural and that demographic. Catholic school girls, Madonna wore a crucifix, and she taught Catholic school girls how to become sluts.
Right.
That was the whole point of Madonna. And this lady that I talked to was a good learner. She was an avid learner. She learned really well how to become a slut. When she went to college, she had 5 intense years of promiscuity, 3 abortions, and ended up with a feeling of disgust at sex, and ended up living with a lesbian for 14 years after that. So all of these stories sort of come together in a series of books that I wrote. So you've already mentioned Slaughter of Cities. That was about ethnic cleansing, the ethnic cleansing of the Catholic neighborhoods. And when people got demoralized, the Catholic girls got demoralized from watching Madonna on television, they became involved in the sexual revolution. And that book is Libido Dominandi, which talks about how sexual liberation is really a form of political control. And that is basically, I then am trying to sort this out. I went to Germany, and from 73 to 76, I was a teacher at a gymnasium in Germany, and I landed there right at the high noon of the sexual revolution in Germany.
Right.
Which was much more intense than it was in the United States, much more intense. And so my students, these are girls, and they're teenage girls. They're going to see Schulmädchen Report. There were 13 Schulmädchen reports, all of them softcore porn, basically to break down the morals of the girls there. They were reading Bravo, and Bravo was a teen magazine, and it had an advice column done by Dr. Sommer, whose name was really Martin Weinstein, and he told them to masturbate. Jesus. So it was right out of the playbook of Wilhelm Reich. The man I just talk about in Libido Dominandi, the man who landed on the cover of the New York Times Magazine in 1970, the spiritus movens behind the Paris Revolution of 1968. All of these things came together, but over this period of time, I was able to put 2 and 2 together, and that's basically the story of my life.
Right.
I was a guinea pig, but I was a smart guinea pig. And I just kind of figured out what happened, and I don't know why I'm the only guy, but I'm glad I figured it out, because once I say this, it resonates.
Yes.
With a lot of different people all over the world now.
Yep.
And so to get back to, I did this book on Libido Dominandi, did this book on sexual liberation, and I just thought, okay, it's just, all these people, but it turned out that a lot of them were Jews.
Right.
And I began to realize, well, wait a minute, this isn't just a coincidence. Wilhelm Reich was a Jew. Al Goldstein was a Jew. Philip Roth was a Jew. All these people who were involved in the sexual revolution were Jews. And this led me to think through, maybe there's another book out there, and that led me to do the book, The Jewish Revolutionary Spirit.
Right. That's another...
At that point, I had to come up with a definition of the Jew. In order to do that, I had to come up with the word logos. I had to use the word logos. Now, I had studied Greek when I was in college, and I remember all those English definitions of the word logos. And so the thesis, I needed this. I needed this word, because without this word, I could not explain what the Jew was. because there's just all this mystification. Is it racial? Is it this? Is it that? It turns out, in the thesis of that book is that the Jew is a theological construct that began at the time of Christ, when the Jewish people had to either accept or reject their Messiah. Right. The Jews who accepted Jesus Christ as the Messiah became the Catholic Church, the New Israel, and those who rejected them are known as Jews. And what is a Jew? A Jew is a rejecter of Christ, who is the Logos incarnate. So a Jew is a rejecter of Logos. And when you reject Logos, you become which is the order of the universe, which is rationality. When you reject that, you become a revolutionary, and that's exactly what happened to the Jews. They chose Barabbas over Christ, and within 30 years, they rose up in revolutionary uprising against Rome, and they were destroyed. The temple was destroyed, and then 60 years they did it again, and they were destroyed again and scattered throughout the Mediterranean basin. And from that point, for the next 2,000 years, they were involved in virtually every form of revolutionary ferment throughout history. So that's the short thumbnail sketch of who I am and how I came to talk about Logos.
Right, and so the culture war, and man, the story you tell there, you're right. It resonates with so many people because everybody is living through it, in real time.
Yes.
And
so you have the choice of being an unconscious guinea pig or a conscious guinea pig, and I think being a conscious guinea pig is superior.
Absolutely.
And so I'm trying to raise the consciousness of people because of consciousness is what makes you free. When you understand the trap, there's a trap there. You don't walk into it. If you don't know it's there, you can fall into it unconsciously. And believe me, there are plenty of traps out there, and your generation has probably discovered all of them. I know, talked to a 28-year-old here in town. He said, we're the generation that grew up with pornography on our phones.
Yeah.
If there's ever a trap, it is, for men, it is pornography.
Absolutely.
So that is one of the reasons I'm doing this. I began Libido Dominandi with an anecdote about the Israeli forces coming into Ramallah, invading their country, taking over the TV stations and broadcasting pornography over the TV stations. Now, why would they do that if pornography means freedom? Well, it doesn't mean freedom. It's a weapon. Yeah. It's psychological warfare, and basically the elites in the Western world, the United States, Germany, and now I'm seeing Sweden on the radar screen. The elites waged war against their own people.
Yeah.
Urban renewal was one aspect, one front of that war, and sexual liberation was the elites waging war against their own people. Now, when I say that, I have to be specific because, America, there's no such thing as American. There are three groups here. 3 ethnic groups based on 3 religions: Protestant, Catholic, and Jew. That's the triple melting pot. That's the real hidden grammar of ethnicity in the United States. And during this period of time, the Protestants and the Jews formed an alliance to destroy the Catholics. It's that simple. Those books will prove it to you if you don't believe it.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And to the listeners, please go check out his website, Culture Wars. His books are available there, as well as, are they on Amazon too?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I have both paper books and ebooks on Amazon.
So you mentioned, say, the 28-year-old boy who said my generation grew up with porn on their phones. I'm 44, so I'm the generation after the boomers. We didn't have porn on our phones, but it's looking back, it's so easy to see how over-sexualized everything became. Media, Hollywood, music, the whole works. It was completely over-sexualized. So this culture war, are you saying it started with this sexual revolution?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I'm saying basically the opening salvo was 1965. It was a momentous year in many regards. The Second Vatican Council had ended. The Catholic Church was completely off balance at this point, didn't know what to think. People didn't know what was up or down. The whole issue of birth control was up in the air and being deliberately manipulated by Father Hesburgh of Notre Dame in collaboration with the Rockefeller Foundation. Griswold versus Connecticut had been handed down by the Supreme Court, which legalized the sale of contraceptives. And then the crucial thing that happened in '65 was the film called The Pawnbroker, which is Holocaust porn. It's Holocaust porn. The Jews who ran Hollywood wanted to have naked women on the screen because this was a way of competing against television. The other way, the expensive way, was sending everybody to Rome and doing things like Ben-Hur and Anthony and Cleopatra. That cost a lot of money. Bare breast didn't cost anything.
Right.
And that's precisely so the Jews, these cynical people behind the movie, exploited the Holocaust for their own to get bare breast on the screen. A completely cynical exploitation of Jewish suffering. But they didn't care because they wanted to break the production code, which had been in existence for 33 years, and they succeeded.
Yeah.
They had to use the Holocaust. They had tried. In 1964 was the year basically that Hollywood declared war on the production code, and they came up with sex farces like Kiss Me Stupid with Dean Martin and Kim Novak. And it bombed. It really bombed. It didn't work. And then they tried Artsy Fartsy, the art film from Sweden, which I'm just learning about now. But basically, The Silence by Ingmar Bergman. I don't know whether you did Ingmar Bergman, but it was like a minor religious observance to go to one of these art theaters and watch a Bergman movie. Bergman was collaborating with a Swede by the name of Harry Schein. Doesn't sound like a Swedish name, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't sound Swedish to me. You know, it's not Gunnar Olafsson or something. It's Harry Schein, who happens to be a Jew from Austria who escaped the Nazis and went to Sweden. And he was collaborating with Hollywood. He was the broker he was the producer for Ingmar Bergman, and they cooked up code breakers. And that's what they did.
Wow.
The Silence was a code breaker. It was intentionally created as a code breaker, and it was exported to Germany, and that's what it did. It broke the code in Germany because it was art. Right. Damn it. It was art. And don't criticize art. It was a cynical exploitation of all this. He was the broker between Bergman and Hollywood. Hollywood was giving Bergman Best Foreign Film year after year because Hollywood was interested in using him to break the code. '63 is when he did The Silence. That's when the big assault happened in Germany. If you're interested in the German story, read my ebook, Werner Heisenberg and Jewish Science. I just did it, and I was in Germany. I gave a speech in Germany in October, and I did a lot of research and explains it in graphic detail, what happened there. If you want to know what happened in Ireland, I just did an interview with Gran Torino in Ireland, the situation in Ireland. What happened in Germany in the 60s happened in Ireland 10 years ago. It's the same thing. It's the same story, and it happened in America in 1965. It's the same story. It's in many ways the same group of people, and it's the same plan, which is basically break down the sexual morality of the people, because then you'll be able to control them. It's that simple. Oh. I don't have to tell young people that pornography is addictive. They know that. Yeah. Well, guess what? The people who make it, basically produce it for free now, know that too. And the whole point of this is to turn you into a docile sex robot, because it's and so you've got your education debt and your pornography. And so sit in your mother's basement and don't bother us.
Right. You know, when you mentioned about how they did it through art and saying don't criticize art, they're very thorough with this culture war and been very successful because, and one of the ways was, I think you would agree, is they redefine terms. They play with language, and I think that has a lot to do with how kind of you came to the understanding by taking that word logos and going, wait a second, what does this really mean, right?
It's the most important word in human history. Yeah. I said so it must be true. No, it is. It's the most important word in human history because it exists at the center of human history. So what we have is a crucial, it's developed in Greece, obviously. It's a Greek word, although the people at the SPLC said it was a Latin word. Anyway, It's a Greek word. It came out of Greek philosophy.
Uh-huh.
And it was adopted by St. John when he wrote his gospel in Greek. And so this was a commitment. The Catholic Church, the gospel, was committed to accepting the legitimacy of human endeavor, sincere human endeavor to know God, to know the good, to know the truth.
Yeah.
And that's why it was incorporated. And so once it began as a kind of, well, there seems to be an order out there. Let's call it Logos, And then what's the order like? Well, the Greeks were famous for geometry. It's kind of like a static order. But obviously, if triangles, you can plot graphs, stuff like that. Anyway, it's more than that. Because by the time of the revelation came, when Jesus Christ came, Logos was a person. It was not just abstract plan. It was a force. It was the force in human history. It was the driving force in human history, which is we would call divine providence, which is basically God's plan for all of human history. And for the first time, with Christianity, with this event, people began to see, it looks as if there's a meaning to history. Now it looks as if there's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you can sort of plot yourself on this graph, and it's only going to happen once. It's not going to go around in circles the way it does in India and lead to hopelessness. It's going to happen once, so you better take it seriously. And you better do your best to get it straight, because you only have one go around here. You only have one life.
That's right, man.
It's over. So I don't want to use that word. People criticize me when I use that word. So don't mess it up.
Right.
It's the only life you have.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say along the lines of Logos, because one of the things I've noticed you've been talking about recently is because it's sort of the divine plan. It's the force that kind of runs the universe, this Logos. When you go against it, or when you try to suppress it, you've been talking a lot about the consequences to that. Do you want to mention a little bit about that?
Yes, there's a plan for your life, and your plan for your life is implicit in your body. Your body has a plan. You know that there's a plan for the way your body functions, the way your stomach functions, the way your muscles function, and your sex organs have a plan too. And the plan is obvious from the beginning, that it's male and female joining together and producing offspring. Right. That is the Logos of human sexuality. We are living now in an era where the oligarchs have declared war on the Logos of sexuality. It started off with German porn, softcore porn films, but now it's really serious. Okay, so first the penultimate step was homosexuality, the promotion of homosexuality, because that is a kind of narcissistic fantasy that the oligarchs want to promote. So you have the illusion that you have hegemony over being. Okay, right. That was the phrase in Planned Parenthood. Freedom means to determine your own being. This is totally preposterous. You can't determine your being. You are what you are. And so the illusion that you can leads you to all sorts of perversions like homosexuality, and now it leads you to give the illusion, if you're mentally disturbed and you're a male and you think you're a female, they will pump you up with hormones and mutilate you so that you can live according to your narcissistic fantasy. Yes. This is an attack on being. It's an attack on nature. It's an attack on the moral law. It's an attack on Logos. Why is that? Because Logos is what makes you free. Logos is your ability to think, and your ability to think means I know what they're doing and it's wrong. They want to abolish any type of notion that you have the right to say, no, it's wrong.
Yes. So part of Logos is being able to criticize what occurs in its absence. And I know you mentioned in a talk not too long ago, you mentioned it a couple times, on how when they try to stop us from talking about it, stop us from criticizing, you said that it leads to violence.
That's right. So I said this in specific. I said it twice, specifically in regard to the Pittsburgh shooting and specifically with regard to the shooting in Poway. Okay, both are instances of exactly what you just mentioned. Okay, the Jewish organizations like the ADL and the SPLC have suppressed speech for decades now. Both of them even got so far as to become involved in government enforcement, tried to get the government to enforce their speech codes. Both the SPLC and the FBI got involved. The SPLC and the ADL got involved with the FBI. The FBI has basically kicked the SPLC out, but they're still involved with the ADL. Now, when you get involved with the ADL, you're involved in suppressing speech. That's all the ADL does. Right. It's an organization that spies on you, it keeps dossiers on you, and it will do whatever it can within its power to wreck your career if you criticize a Jew. If you disagree with a Jew, they will go after you and they will call you an anti-Semite. Because an anti-Semite, the definition now is basically anyone who disagrees with a Jew is now an anti-Semite. Now, I'm saying after the recent shooting in the synagogue in Poway, California, the ambassador of the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations went before the United Nations and gave a speech, and he said, the time for talking is over. The time for conversation is over.
They would love that.
Anti-Semitism a crime. Yeah. Okay, that means now, I mean, I had this conversation with this guy, Dr. Brown. He calls me
I saw that.
Anti-Semite. Well, wait a minute. I try to explain to him, you can't get a word in edgewise with this guy. He's always putting words in your mouth. I kept trying to explain to him why I'm not an anti-Semite and why someone who criticizes Jews is not an anti-Semite. But you can't get, see, he refuses to listen. He's impossible to talk to. The proof of this is that second video he did where he's got me on the screen. It's a recording from before that he had done. And he's kind of ranting at me, ranting at my picture. And then he says, you get the last word. And then I'm on the screen and I'm not there. I'm on the screen. And then he cuts me off. And then he says, and this is what he said. Or he puts words in my mouth. Yeah. Because he cannot face up to the fact that the current definition of anti-Semitism is anyone who disagrees with a Jew. Now, you can even say the same thing that the Jew says, and they will call you an anti-Semite. If you say, for example, you're the Jews are behind gay marriage, that's anti-Semitic. Well, Amy Dean said it. Jews say it. They brag about it. But if you say it, you're anti-Semitic. And now, if this ambassador gets his way, you will go to jail. You will go to jail because somebody like this guy Brown will call you an anti-Semite, and that makes you, now it's a crime if this guy succeeds, so you will go to jail. And that is precisely the situation in England right now. Jez Turner went to jail because some Jew did not like what he said. Now, this is intolerable. This is an intolerable type of tyranny, and we have to stand up to it. Because what they're doing, in my weaker moments, I think they know what they're doing, but basically what I'm saying here is that every time these people succeed in suppressing speech, some guy somewhere picks up a gun. Yeah. And what you realize is they both agree. What did the shooter in Poway have in common with Ambassador Dannon? They both believe that the time is for conversation is over. Now, they have created a dialectic here in which terrorism leads to acts of repression, and acts of repression lead to more terrorism. And that is the current dynamic. And we, the overwhelming majority of the American people, are kind of like caught in the crossfire here between the Jewish organizations who want to suppress speech and the terrorists who find that talking is no longer, they can't talk to anybody, so they're going to pick up a gun. That's the situation we're in right now.
Yeah. And they'll never, the mainstream media will never blame it on the fact that there's no more conversation. They'll always blame it on something else. For example, and this is related to my regular content and most of the listeners that are listening to you today, For example, there's one article that came out that said it's no coincidence the synagogue shooter posted about the red pill movement, and then it goes on to blame men's rights activists and people, other men like myself and the men that are listening, blaming us, men who basically are trying to walk away from the illusion. They're trying to walk towards logos. They
will use this crisis as an excuse to go after people they don't like. It's that simple. That's what's happening here. Okay, now let's take a step back here. Now, Dr. Brown is a Zionist. I mean, he promotes the state of Israel. In the state of Israel, if they don't like you and you happen to be a Palestinian, they can shoot you. They can shoot you with impunity. They did it. They did it. So to what extent does Dr. Brown's rhetoric, Zionist rhetoric, lead to the death of Palestinians? I think that's a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Because Zionism is an entity, and they've got a lot of guns over there. And they shoot people they don't like over there. When the Palestinians protest, they shoot them. Now, that, it seems to me, is teaching what Shakespeare would call bloody instructions. And the question remains, so if it's okay for the Israelis to gun down innocent women and children, why is it wrong for this guy to walk into a synagogue and start shooting people?
Right.
You can't have it both ways. Okay? You can't defend Israel gunning down people and then condemn someone when he shoots Jews. It's the same dynamic here. And I'm saying it's our duty as creatures of Logos to insist on a conversation. We're not going to let the ambassador shut us up.
Yeah.
We're not going to let the terrorists shut us up, because the Israelis are in cahoots with the terrorists here. This is the dynamic that we have here. This repression creates this act of terrorism. This act of terrorism creates this repression. And what they want to do is use this as an excuse to shut down anything they don't like. It's all a form of control. Now, in Sri Lanka, 300 some Catholics were murdered with bombs going off on Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
Has anyone proposed making anti-Catholicism illegal?
No, of course not.
No, not going to happen.
Well, that's the thing with these people is they despise logos, but they love hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. That's their bread and butter.
Yes.
Speaking of shootings, did you hear just recently there was a shooting in I believe it was Colorado? Did you hear about that?
No, it's hard to keep up with shootings. They happen every day.
I know, it's insane.
I'm saying, look, it's not a coincidence. We have unprecedented levels of thought control and unprecedented levels of basically daily shootings. I'm saying there's a connection here.
Yes.
There's a connection. The more you suppress speech, the more you promote violence. That's the connection. I read the manifesto that this guy wrote. He says, I'm tired. I've been demonized for my entire life, and I'm tired of it, and no one will listen to me. So I'm going to take up a gun, and I'm going to start a revolution. He was very conscious about how the revolution, the dynamic of revolution, he learned it from Lenin.
Wow.
You know, there's no question. That was Lenin's program. Acts of terrorism leading to repression, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until the situation becomes intolerable and the revolution breaks out. That's the plan. I think both groups know that.
Right. Well, in regards to this latest shooting, since you haven't heard about it, the perpetrator, now get this, the perpetrator was a female transitioning to a man and hated Christianity. So it wasn't the red pills, it wasn't the men's rights, it wasn't even a male. It wasn't a Muslim. It was a man. It was a woman who thought she was a man and was transitioning. That's who went and killed. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, in a sense, I'm not surprised. 40% of all transsexual people who go through the operation commit suicide. So there's look. First of all, you're starting off with violence against yourself by mutilating your own body. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the violence is there. The only question is, well, how's it going to come out?
Right. And the the thing is about these shootings and what I mentioned before in regards to kind of, in particular, my audience. I mean, even though we're talking mostly about men's rights and stuff on my channel, and we expand into different topics, is why we have you on. But a lot of my listeners are good listeners, and they like to hear these truths kind of get spit at them. And I was hoping that maybe I could get you to address my regular listeners and explain, maybe give them some advice, because in regards to MGTOW, I mentioned this to you briefly before we came on, is that MGTOW is sort of a response to this lack of logos in the world today. In feminism, that part of the cultural revolution of feminism, MGTOW again is a sort of a response to that, where men are now choosing celibacy. They're choosing not to date. There's no such thing as courtship anymore. Marriage is almost a death sentence, where your first marriage is a 50% chance likely of divorce, and everyone after that goes up exponentially. Custody for men is horrible. I think the highest suicide rate in the Western world is men between the ages, I think it's 35 and 45, and most of them are divorced fathers. I mean, it's so in the condition that the world is in today, and I believe it has to do, it's rooted in what you've talked about in your culture war, sexual revolution, feminism. There's a response for a lot of men that are just sort of, okay, I'm done. I have to drop out and kind of find myself.
That's good. That's good, because you will never find yourself if you have a sexual addiction. So the first thing you'd have to do is say, I'm going to break that sexual addiction so that I can regain my mind. I can regain my mind. Lust darkens the mind. Right. That's why the oligarchs promote it, because it makes you stupid and you're easy to push around because you're a slave of your passions, and all I have to do is manipulate your passions to control you. A man has as many masters as he has vices. That's what St. Augustine said. And so if you want to be free, avoid vice. But on the other hand, if you want to control people, promote vice. And that's the tack that I described in Libido Dominandi, beginning with the Marquis de Sade and going all the way up to when I ended that book. So yes, I mean, I wouldn't call it celibacy. I'd call it chastity.
Chastity.
Celibacy it's like a vow you take when you become a priest that you are never going to get married.
Oh, okay.
That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about chastity, which is basically self-control. You have to regain control over your own mind and body. And the only way you can do that is by kicking like the porn addiction, or if you have a masturbation addiction, you have to stop. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying it's possible. I'm saying, look, this is the whole point I tried to talk to you about Logos incarnate. It's not just some old guy telling you don't do it.
Right.
There is a power out there, the same power that created you, that gave you the being and the essence that you have, is out there waiting to help you. And there's a plan for your life. I said this to Roosh. I'm not trying to justify what you did, but maybe you had to do that to get to where you are. But the good news is, even if you did do that, there's a way out of it. This is what I'm trying to say here. It's not just geometry. It is geometry, okay? It is physics. It is the solar system. But it's also your mind. It's also your soul, and it's also your body. And your mind can retake control of your body. It's possible, because there's help out there, and the help is known as grace in classical theological terms, and the source of grace is the sacrament, and the home of the sacrament is the Catholic Church. No other churches do not have sacraments, or valid sacraments anyway.
Right.
And so I'm saying, I'm just not telling you, okay, don't do it, and then you're on your own. Here's the philosophy book and blah blah blah. I'm writing a philosophy book. I don't denigrate philosophy. I spend my life thinking about philosophy, but I'm saying this history of Logos that I'm doing entered a crucial period, because the Greeks, that you could have a God who was transcendent, like Aristotle's God, and you could have a God who was immanent, like Plato's God, but the immanent God he loved you, but he wasn't powerful, and the powerful God didn't care one way or the other about you. So you were stuck, you were in a bind, and suddenly you realize, well, wait a minute, they were like the 7 blind Hindus and the elephant. In other words, they were both touching a part of the same thing, and they didn't realize they were both parts of the same thing. And the word we use for those two things, those two opposites that are part of the same thing, is the Trinity.
Right.
And once that notion of Trinity entered human consciousness, it became imperative that you get with the plan. That is the plan. You can't pretend it is not the plan. And the places that didn't understand it, in many ways through no fault of their own, like I'm talking about Islam now,
Yep.
history left them behind. They were way ahead of my barbarian ancestors in Germany and Ireland, but it stopped.
Do you know? Do you know how that happened? Because
Yes, I do.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a whole chapter on it, as a matter of fact.
oh, do you? Because
Yeah, I do.
because I don't know if I told you this, but I'm a Muslim. I converted when I was in Indonesia. I lived in Indonesia for about 13 years, and I married a Muslim woman. So I converted through marriage. I had to convert through marriage. One has to give in, right? And they're not going to. So I converted, and I spent a lot of time studying the religion. And I don't know if you mentioned this in your book, but I learned about how Islam I'd say Islam lasted about after Muhammad died. I'd say it lasted about 400 years, and then it died. And what I learned was that the current religion, which I don't even call Islam, I call it Islamism or Mohammedism. It basically died with the coming of a Persian convert named Bukhari, who many people believe was actually a Jew. Is that something that was a part of your studies there?
That name does not sound familiar. I spent a lot of time talking about Persians in the chapter on Islam.
Ah, okay.
Because it never really took in Persia. It was, I mean, the Persians were an ancient, sophisticated culture that goes back 2,500 years. And the Arabs were not. But the Arabs conquered Persia.
Right.
Militarily, and they imposed Islam on Persia. And I mean, I've had long conversations with Persians about this, and I don't think it ever took. I don't think it ever. First of all, the Persians created their own version of Islam called Shia Islam.
Yes.
And the Sunnis all consider them heretics, and some Sunnis would prefer to chop off their head before they chop off my head. The animosity is so intense. But I think Shia Islam is in many ways a protest movement against the Arab conquest.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that I think Islam had a stultifying effect on Persian culture. Suhrawardi, I cover him in there. He was basically made a big impression on Saladin's son, and Saladin didn't like the impression, so he persuaded his son to chop Suhrawardi's head off. And at that point, the Persians kind of say, well, all right, I figured it out. It's dangerous to be a philosopher. I'm not going to be a philosopher anymore. I'm going to be a poet. And what happened is the birth of Persian poetry, which is part of the greatest poetry in the world. Hafez, people like that. Amazing poetry. But it's kind of wine, women, and song. And they just kind of checked out because being a philosopher was too dangerous in Persia.
Right.
And I think it had a stultifying effect because many of the greatest Islamic philosophers happen to be Persians.
That's right.
Because of their background.
Well,
now we have reached the point where everybody's getting involved in examining the roots of the Quran.
Yes.
And I think it's a worthwhile endeavor. Gabriel Reynolds is doing this at Notre Dame. He just did a book on it. But I don't think that Islam is going to be able to withstand the scrutiny. I don't think it's going to be able to do it.
No, I don't think it will either. And I'm a Muslim. I call myself a Muslim. I mean, and if you have a chance, check out the name Bukhari, who was a Persian, and it was about 200 years after Muhammad passed. He was the originator of the Ahadith, which is the thousands upon thousands of volumes of literature that was written and collected 200 to 300 years after Muhammad had died. Bukhari was a Jewish Persian converted to Islam, and that's the current religion of Islam today. And you're right, it will not stand up to scrutiny, not at all.
See, I was in Golistan. I was in Mashhad a year ago, And one of my friends there keeps getting me into this debate with this mullah from Quam. So the mullah shows up, and the mullah asked me a question about faith and reason. So I start off on my, my short history of faith and reason. And since we're in Golistan, and since I was doing research at the time, I started to talk about the wheel, because that's where the wheel was invented. That's just, yeah. I mean, it's the great Eurasian landmass. It's flat. They had horses there. They wouldn't have any place else, and that's where the wheel was invented. And I said the wheel was invented by, and he stops me and he says, it was invented by a prophet. I said, a prophet? I said, we're talking about like 13,000 years ago. Right. He said, no, it was a prophet who invented the wheel. Right. Well, I said, how do you know this? He said, it's in the Hadith.
Oh, God.
It's in the Hadith.
Oh, God.
And so I said, well, I mean, okay, I understand what the Hadith are. First of all, they're not, that's not canonical, okay? I know it's like commentaries on the Quran, but I don't have to accept the Quran. I'm not a Muslim, and I certainly don't have to accept the Hadith. And besides, I think there's a simpler explanation. But the problem here is that there is no secondary causality in Islam.
Right.
That's the problem. You need secondary causality in order to have science, because otherwise everything comes directly from the mind of God. That's Maimonides, the Jewish scholar, said that the Islamic God is like the caliph, and the caliph goes for an afternoon ride, and when he comes to the gate of the palace, he decides to go left or he decides to go right, but before he gets there, he doesn't know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Well, you can't. That's a mind. First of all, you cannot fathom the mind of God, because your mind is not deep enough, not smart enough.
Yeah.
But secondly, you've got a God who basically is pure will, and there's kind of no. If you say he's bound by logos or something like that, you're impugning his power, and so as a result, science could not develop there. Many people made valiant efforts. Averroes, Ibn Rushd made a valiant effort. They're always making this last-ditch attempt to save Aristotle, and they always lose. Yeah. The Asherites always win out again in the end against the Mutazilites. Now that's okay. That's fine. Okay, it's not a happy ending. There's a movie on Avicenna that the British-German collaboration. But anyway, the end of the movie is there's Avicenna. The Asherites rebel. These are the fundamentalists, and they're burning down the library. This is the tragedy of Iran in a nutshell. Everybody burned down their libraries.
That's right.
They're on the crossroads of the Eurasian landmass. People come in, the Mongols come in. The first thing they do is burn down their libraries. This is part of the tragedy of Islamic thought. And Averroes, he was known in Latin as Averroes, Ibn Rushd, made a valiant attempt to just say, okay, it's Aristotle, it's philosophy, it's worth looking into. And that's true. It contradicts the Quran. Mm-hmm. That's true. Okay, let's just call a peace here and say the Quran is right when it says the world was created, but Aristotle's right in philosophy. That's theology. In philosophy, he's right when he says it's eternal. Well, you can't have that. That doesn't work. You're not going to be able to. The crisis came not in Islam. It did sort of come in Islam. Averroes was despised by his own people, but he became hugely important in the Christian West, in Paris in the 13th century. But Aquinas had Averroes' commentary on Aristotle on his desk when he was writing his Summa Contra Gentiles. But he could not accept this. We cannot accept this doctrine of the two truths. And they basically, the denial of that preserved Logos in the West.
Yeah.
Did not preserve it in the Islamic world. I'm saying this. I'm a friend. I have lots of friends, and I'm honored by the fact that I've had lots of deep conversations with Iranian friends. And what I'm telling you now is the gist of these conversations.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think from my opinion and my studies on the religion and on the Quran, I've noticed. I think the Muslims lost Logos about the beginning of the first millennium is when it started. Just they lost it. And they haven't been able to get it back. You're absolutely right. They can't.
There's some block there, but now, okay, you guys, the Muslims are off in the desert all by themselves. Well, that's not possible anymore. The neoconservatives declared war on Islam. The United States is waging war on Islam right now. That obviously the Iraq war, and now John Bolton, the psychopath in charge of foreign policy, is now sending aircraft carriers to the Persian Gulf. I think Bolton wants to finish off the job here by attacking Iran. That will not work out well. I guarantee you. All the adults in the room, in the military, in the army, have warned the people in the White House. You cannot win this war. Mm-hmm. You barely and if you should contemplate what you did in Iraq, because you destroyed that country, and by doing that you created Iran as a great regional power there. And it was Iran, Russia and Syria that defeated the United States in Syria.
Yeah.
So I again here, you're caught in the middle here. You're caught in the middle here, and you've got another dialectic here. And I'm trying to say, we need to take a step back. We need to talk to these people. I've talked to them. They are the politest people in the world. They are. I was in Iran, marching down the street, and some celebration of the revolution, surrounded by women in chadors, and they're all, turn to my translator, what are they saying? Death to America. That's what they're saying.
Wow.
I'm the only guy in Tehran wearing a tie, and they're surrounded by women saying death to America. Well, guess what? I look like an American, believe it or not. And people would come up to me and they'd say to me, are you an American? And I felt like saying, no, I'm a Canadian. But I said, yes, I'm an American. And they said, I'd like to go to America. In spite of everything that America has done to them, they still have this sense that that's the government, that's not the people. It's still possible to talk to these people.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now we're getting close to the top of the hour. We have about 10 minutes before the hour's up, and I know that Nick wanted to ask a few things to you, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, I like to change course here and discuss a little bit why the Catholic Church has this bend don't break mentality, playing not to win but playing not to lose. You see Cardinal Dolan, shaking hands with the Prime Minister of Ireland, who's a homosexual. There's so-called talk about excommunicating Andrew Cuomo, but again, you don't see the Catholic Church being proactive, and I respect the Catholic Church. Again, I've been going to church a little bit more now, learning a little bit more about myself and getting older, but it seems that the Catholic Church is somewhat just silent on this social engineering that's taking place in the western parts of Europe and the United States. And I'd like your opinion on that. I'm asking, why is the Catholic Church not doing anything and just rolling over? I mean, how much longer is it going to be until Catholic Church starts embracing sodomy? It seems like that's what they're hell-bent on, going after with this whole pedophile thing. And you've mentioned this, but why is the Catholic Church not being proactive?
Because I told you there was a war against the Catholic Church, and the war included the corruption of the morals of the people in it, and that included the priest. And so the priests who were sexualized, I've described this before, most people are heterosexual, so they left, and that concentrated the percentage of homosexuals in the clergy. And gradually they formed what Archbishop Vigano called a homosexual mafia. Cardinal McCarrick, highest level of the church in America, he's a homosexual, a notorious homosexual. Everybody knew it.
Wow.
The thing that made this possible was Americanism. Every Catholic bishop became an Americanist during the anti-communist crusade. And the anti-communist crusade went all the way up to 1980-89, when the Berlin Wall came down. John Paul II was involved in the anti-communist crusade, and that gave America the aura of respectability, which meant that sexual revolution had the aura of respectability, and all these people had their own unruly passions, and they caved into it, and they succumbed to their passions because America was telling them to do it. And then once they became enslaved to their passions, they were blackmailable, and then they became neutered because of that, and so they don't say anything. They don't want to offend anybody. They don't want to offend. They're afraid. A lot of these people are blackmailable. Certainly, McCarrick was blackmailable. If he comes out and says sodomy is a sin that cries to heaven for vengeance, next thing day the Washington Post is going to publish him with pictures of him in some men's room somewhere. So he's not going to say it. That's the short explanation of why the church doesn't say anything.
So you think there's a solution in sight for the Catholic Church?
Of course there is. The church cannot fail.
Right.
So what we're seeing is a purgation of these elements. It may not happen with this Pope, but I think what this consciousness I'm talking about has a direct relevance to the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church was a victim of warfare that they did not understand.
Right.
What I'm saying now, I cannot teach at a Catholic university if I say this kind of stuff. I will immediately be fired, because I have to toe the Americanist line. I cannot say that ethnic cleansing destroyed Catholic neighborhoods. I would be considered a bad person. Look at John McGreevy. He wrote a decent book on parish boundaries, but he had to blame the Catholics for the problem. Well, I'm sorry, but it wasn't the Catholics. They were the victim. Don't blame the victim, John.
Jeez. So, I mean, when you say Americanism, does that does kind of that have a connection with Israel? The concept of Americanism?
Americanism was declared a heresy by Leo XIII in 1892, Testem Benevolentiae. It basically meant that the church should function according to democratic principles.
Okay,
that's what he was bothered about, and they said that's wrong. No, what it came to be later, Brian Hare gave a talk at a secret conference at St. Mary's College, the place that fired me for being against abortion, and he said, when it comes to sex, the United States knows more than the Catholic Church. That's current state of affairs Americanism. Talk to Father James Martin, the Jesuit. Talk to the Jesuits about how they feel about America. They are flaming, flagrant Americanists.
That's what I want to ask you now. Now, Pope Francis is a Jesuit. Now, I'm slowly learning more about being a Catholic and the history of it. If Pope Francis is a Jesuit, does that mean he has to answer to the Black Pope?
No, but does that mean he's going to defend Jesuits? Yes. I mean, that blood runs thicker than water. That's what's going on here. The Jesuits, read America. Why is it called America Magazine? Does that give you a clue about their attitude toward this country? America will give you a permission slip to act on any sexual vice you have, as long as you become docile and under their control. That's the American deal. That's the American way of life. And plenty of churchmen succumb to that crooked deal, and we are living the consequences of it. That's the problem. The Jesuits are the avant-garde of the homosexual mafia in the Catholic Church right now. James Martin. Check out James Martin, SJ, and ask yourself, how does that fit in with Catholic moral teaching?
Yeah, I know who James Martin is. It's quite fascinating. I don't understand why, again, there's no counter within the Catholic Church to the Jesuits preaching liberation theology. How come?
Counter. Unless you're talking to the counter. Vox flamens in deserto. I am the voice crying in the wilderness.
Right on, man. Well, I think you've been very tireless as of late, and really been generous with your time with a lot of people, and I think I can speak for everybody, including my listeners, that we really do appreciate it. It's about time, damn it. You know what I mean?
Yes. And Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He doesn't change, no matter how many sinners are running the church. He doesn't change at all, and you can have access to him through those sacraments. And that's the important thing, because those sacraments are the source of strength that will allow you to overcome whatever problem you have and rejoin God's plan, the original plan that you messed up.
Logos.
Yes.
Now
that's it.
Now, before I let you go, I just wanted to confirm you're working on a book right now on logos specifically?
Yeah, the history of Logos and the Logos of history.
Okay. And then, do you know what, kind of have a date when that will be available?
No, but I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I started at in my usual fashion, except in an exaggerate. I started at the beginning of time.
Wow.
Okay,
Can't wait for that.
and I'm up to 1806. So that's a pretty significant chunk of time, right? You know,
Yes.
whatever, however you want to slice it. Yeah, so I'm up to 1806.
Perfect.
Where can we get a copy from on Culture
Oh,
Wars or on?
it's not been printed. I'm hoping to have it out by the end of the year. So if you sign up with Culture Wars magazine, you will be the first to know.
Perfect.
There will a chapter will be appear, so you can get a preview of what this book is really about. A chapter will probably appear this summer, the latest chapter. So you can also join in the conversation by dealing with other like-minded people and write in and listen to what they have to say about it in a much more. I don't want to denigrate the internet, but it's a much more civilized fashion because you have to put it in writing, and that's better to put it in writing because then the people can't switch the video on you.
Put words in your mouth.
Put words in my mouth. You get the last word.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was great having you on, Dr. Jones. I really appreciate it. I want everybody to check out. I put a link to culturewars.com below. So, guys, go check it out. Become a member. Check out his books. He's got lots of good stuff. So, anyway, thanks again, Dr. Jones, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening, and we'll hope to talk to you again
You
soon.
too.
Yeah.
Peace. Salam.
Salam.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Send me the link.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll send you the link through Skype. All right. Did I just lose everybody? I'm going to get Lamprey back. Hold on. There he is. What happened?
I disconnected. Why don't we shut the stream down and then we start up a post game wrap up?
Well, we can just keep going on this. Why not?
Oh, you want to?
Yeah.
Run the commercials and give me 2 minutes, all right?
All right. Okay, guys. That was it for E. Michael Jones. He's very generous with his time. He gave us an hour of it, and we're very appreciative. We're going to take a little break. I'm just going to run the same tired old ads for you guys, but stick around. We'll discuss a little bit about...
Yo, BRB.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be right back. All right. Talk to you guys in a bit.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman. I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova, who knows music is the food of love. Model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest, we've got a medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
We have some sad news for you. Rock and roll is dead and pop is in! Why not discover the excitement of the science of music yourself at Synth & Son, the home of keyboards? Thanks to the science of music, you don't need musical talent to make great music. Just listen. I created that just by pressing a button. Synthesizers are the new wave. Why work hard on difficult compositions when a machine can make music better than you've ever dreamed of? You'll be the hit of the party. It's perfect for in-restaurant entertainment, cover bands, and funerals. Make fugues funky and death marches danceable. It's the science of music at Synth & Son. Remember, you don't know you're a musician until you try. How do you like to enjoy a Rusty Brown's Ring Donut?
I like to lick lovingly around the outside and then thrust my tongue in the middle.
I like to munch it vigorously.
I just love the batter all over my face.
On Friday nights, I just can't stop eating Rusty Brown's Ring Donuts.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Sometimes I like to wear women's panties and walk around 5th Street.
When you go downtown, make sure you enjoy Rusty Brown's Ring Donuts.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Robar, entrepreneur, VIP, and founder of the revolutionary program, Think Your Way to Success. It's a 3-step program that's been changing lives and my income for the last 2 years. 5 years ago, I was a nobody, just like you. After my Think Your Way to Success program, I spend the entire weekend in my jacuzzi or engaging in the exciting sport of domino toppling. Hey, if you can think it, you can do it. One of my award-winning courses is sure to be perfect for you. The first course I call Think, Hold That Thought, Complete, because that's what you do. Step 2 is known as Learn, Start, Doing, where I explain the mysteries of starting. Or take the new accelerated course that will have you laughing and hugging strangers. Motivate, demonstrate, then motivate again. Just listen to these endorsements, and remember, these people volunteered. They aren't being paid much.
I've been on the Think, Hold That Thought Complete program, and I have to say, I'm finally going to start my career in being a well-paid rich person.
Yeah, I've been thinking my way to success for a while now. It's some good stuff.
Call now and sign up for my Think Your Way to Success program. And if you want to think really fast, try my Crank It Out program. Call 1-866-434-SELF. Hey, don't just do it. Think about it.
Sweaty leather tracksuit? Absurdly fat Dayglow laces? Something missing? Complete the look with a replica car sign insignia on a chunky gold plate chain at Vice City's one-stop shop for people who know how to put the hip into hip-hop.
Wow, you look fresh.
Complete the look.
All right, we're back, guys. Thanks for tuning in. For you guys that are still here, a lot of people dropped out. But anyway, so that was Dr. E. Michael Jones. I'm going to send him a link to this so he can mirror it. But I imagine if he he'll have to chop it up if he doesn't want this last bit at the end.
Oh, I would cut it for him just to be polite.
Oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could. I'll edit it and send it to him via Skype.
Just give him without the comments on the side and our avatars. Just give him like a blank backdrop. That's out of respect, just to make life easier for him.
Well, I won't be able to edit that out. I could. I mean, I guess I suppose I could just do the audio over a different backdrop. Yes, I could do that.
Yeah, do that for him.
Okay, I can do that.
It was really psyched. I can't believe I finally got to listen to finally got to have a bit of a conversation with the man I've been a fan of for the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I hope I really enjoyed it too, and I hope you guys did. Sorry we didn't get into any questions. We kind of wanted we'd have very little time with him. We only had an hour, so we didn't really have time to get into the questions in the chats. But if you guys have any questions now, you can ask us. But unfortunately, Dr. Jones is gone. So, now what did you want to get into here for the next?
It's a bit of the there's a couple questions I really wanted to bring up to him. They're a little bit out of his range on his knowledge, but I really want to know, why are the most violent countries in the world Catholic? In comparison to Muslim countries and Buddhist countries that have the same percentage as far as theology goes. Obviously Cambodia is 95% Buddhist. They don't have the same type of violence. You look at Saudi Arabia, there's not much violence. Even Syria, prior to the war in Syria, not much violence. Mm-hmm. But if you look at a country like El Salvador, Honduras, Brazil, Mexico, they're just lopping each other's heads off left and right. Me and my brother used to have a joke saying, like, who would win, the jihadists or the Mexican drug cartel? Like, who would actually win in that battle, But, and I actually think the jihadists would win because they just have no fear in dying versus, the drug cartel guys. They actually have a bit of a fear of death,
Yeah, of course. No, I think a lot of the, he really went into also on a lot of the topics he talked to Roosh about. Because I mean, bringing up the fact that this is a MGTOW channel, there's a connection there. And if you watched did you watch the Roosh interview?
Yeah.
Yeah. I talk about the death of Return of Kings. Wow. Like that.
Well, I lived a little bit. I mean, you lived a little bit of Roosh's life. I certainly did,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't take it back. I learned a lot. Learned about a lot about myself. Learned a lot about women. I've taken sex much more seriously after experiencing that, realizing, hey, look, it's really about procreation, and I've definitely followed that philosophy now, moving back to the United States. But my biggest pet peeve with the Catholic Church is just a respectful silence to the homosexual community. It's there's just no, again, it's this bend don't break, playing not to lose, not playing to win, like a Met fan, like the New York Mets. like again, Cardinal Dolan, who is the head cardinal for New York State, shaking hands with Andrew Cuomo, who's quite okay with killing babies, right? So I don't really see the Catholic Church being very. It's just not strong. It's just not. As far as I'm concerned, just not masculine enough for me.
Yeah. Well, that's one avenue where the Muslims are beating the Catholics, is they do not tolerate sodomy.
I don't know if he, obviously E. Jones doesn't have all the answers, as much as I would love for him to be the guy with all the answers. But hey, look, you got to find your own way, go your own way. Hey, look, what are you supposed to do about Catholic girls in Snapchat?
Yeah, jeez.
Right. So Catholic women are being distracted with all these, with college, with Instagram, with social media, with work. Going on the carousel of men. Trying to hypergamy float their way to the top. Unfortunately, it's not gonna turn out too well for the overriding majority of the Christian population in the United States.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was it was pretty interesting to hear his, kind of his story, how he came into it, and it really did start with a sexual revolution, and it did penetrate the Catholic Church.
Well, you look at Madonna. You mentioned Madonna, and I wanted to mention, look, who's taken the place of Madonna is Lady Gaga, another Catholic from Staten Island, an Italian American, and she's now carried on. You had sexualized the women. Now what Lady Gaga has done is now she's brought in the homosexual aspect of things, where she calls the gay community that follows her minions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so here we go again. It's part two, Madonna Reloaded with Lady Gaga.
Oh Jesus. Oh yeah, Ed wants to come on next week, and we can talk. Have we already talked about who Lady Gaga really is, right?
Yeah, Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, she did play that character as well. Yeah. Rico's in the chat. He says Jesus' dad Joseph was cucked. Joseph, you are not the father. The Immaculate Conception is in the Quran as well. You know that?
Well, again, basically Islam is a derivative of the Catholic Church. It suffers dualism in a lot of ways. And if you listen to Sam Vakin's take on Islam, he says that the Islam today is where the Catholic Church was like 600 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's pretty interesting, because I don't know if people know it, but when it comes to Islam, in the faith, in the Quran, which is the book, and I agree with you. Basically, if you're a Muslim and you believe that the Quran is the word of God, then you have to believe that the coming of Islam was just logos again. It was just God going, here's the message, here's the warning, same God, same message.
Yeah, here's round two.
Yep, here's round two.
Form of jihad.
You're running out of time, basically. And in the book, the second longest chapter in the Quran is called Miriam, and it's all about the mother of Jesus. Of course, his Arabic name is Isa. So, and the Immaculate Conception is in it. So there's a lot of comparisons between that and Catholicism.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, today you're supposed to hate Islam. That's the going narrative.
Well, you bomb the Muslims and you socially engineer the Catholics. That's basically what's being played out.
And who's behind it? Who's
It's funny.
behind it?
Right. Well, for me, it's really not that the whole Jewish thing. For me, it's really not as a big of a deal as the average layman who's never really met a Jew. For me, I'm used to it. Like, they're up to no good. They're being Hebes or whatever. There's a lot of interfaith marriage here in New York. I have family members that are Jews and stuff, and there's a bit of a dialect. Stop being a Hebe. That's what I tell my one of my relatives. Like, knock it off. Like, knock it off. He's like, okay, I'll knock it off. Right. So. There's a bit of a more of an understanding versus someone from Kansas who's never met someone like that. For me, it's not that big of a deal. If you're constantly playing a game with them, you start to learn their tactics, and that's certainly more or less my experience. It's not as big of a deal as, let's say, again, someone from the Midwest, or like Mike Pence, for example, has no idea how to handle this situation. If you put me in Mike Pence's position, I'm like, this is just typical of them.
Typical he behavior.
It's just it's not that big of a deal. People just keep making such a big deal. You know what the big deal is they have so much control and they have so much power, and that's what bothers a lot of people.
Yeah. Logic Wins goes, who is Lady Gaga really? Well, she is a Hebe. She's a self-proclaimed Jew. And her actual real name, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know if that could be proven to be her actual birth name. I don't know, but she has played other characters. Amy Winehouse was played by the same actor that's playing Lady Gaga. So, I mean, in other words, what we call the actor-based reality, where we'll have Ed on next week, is basically legend making. They fake the death of the character, Amy Winehouse. Everyone cries boo-hoo. They make millions of dollars off of legend making sales, and then they play a different character. They just play a totally different character. No, she's Jewish, man. The actor that's playing Lady Gaga is Jewish. Don't believe what the fucking media tells you. That's not her name. She's not Italian, Rico. Sorry. She's a Jew. 100% Jewish actor.
That's offensive.
Huh?
Because a lot of people assume Italians are Jews. I get it quite often. Are you Jew? I'm like, no, I'm Italian. I know I look Jewish and I sound Jewish, but no, I'm not Jewish. And yes, a lot of Italians look Jewish. In fact, during World War II, a lot of Italian Americans who were serving in the United States Army were thrown into concentration camps just because they looked like Jews and sounded like Jews, and they were attacked. And so when the Italians got locked up from the Wehrmacht and the SS, the Italians were like, "No, I'm not Jewish, dude." I was like, "No, don't send me there." Well, so that did happen. There's some great stories of Italian Americans escaping concentration camps because they were being persecuted just for the mere fact that they sounded and looked Jewish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Logic Wins. Tune in next weekend. I'm gonna get Ed Chiarini on again. He's the he is the professional on actor-based reality.
Actor-based reality with Chiarini.
Well, you know that the Jews, the common concept of what a Jew is or what a Jew looks like, let's say in America today or in the Western world, they're descendants of they're Ashkenazi. They're not descended. They're not Sephardic. They're actually not Semites. Their descendants come from northern Turkey and Italy. That's where they come from. Yeah.
Again, Lady Gaga looks like Amy Winehouse. Is she, in fact? I mean, we'll have Ed come on and dissect that. But yeah, it's quite common where Italians are thought of as Jews. Like I said, I get it quite often.
Yeah, for sure. Who else is in there? Rusky's there. Yeah, he says He says Jones was in the middle of the German sexual revolution. I bet he had more women than all of us. He was married though at the time. No, he was fortunate that he escaped that. So, and now he's telling us
he
all
was
about
married
it.
when he was like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I just learned that they I mentioned it during last week's live stream about the far left releasing left wing terrorist that the Weather Underground. They released a woman who was in the getaway car, and they just released her from prison. They commuted her sentence after 40 years. That she was reformed. She's allowed. She went along. She was a patsy. She didn't commit any crime. They took advantage of the young woman. She needs to be released from jail. Who was behind it? The ACLU.
Damn.
Her release. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good to have Jones on because even if you don't bring it up, he'll bring up the Jews.
Yeah.
I did not lead him to that, man, at all. Just came up.
No, that's kind of, again, beating a dead horse. I mean, we've covered this whole concept before, but his approach to it, him giving you an historical narrative to it, I think it is very important because it's where we are today.
Yep.
I mean, who controls Google? Who controls Facebook? Who controls the banks? Who controls real estate? Who controls Hollywood? Who controls your foreign policy?
Yeah. Well, one good way he put it, and this is for the listeners that don't know some of his talking points, but one good way he puts it, and I've heard him say this a number of times, is that he's often, if you criticize the Jews, who are the Jews, and then, anti-Semite. And he's like, well, if you go to Germany has to pay reparations. They have to write out a check every year and give it to who? Guess who they give it to? The Jews. And guess who is paying it? The Germans. And he's like, that doesn't mean that every single Jew in the world gets a check. And it doesn't mean that every single German is writing those checks. But it is the Jews.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. And you see Louis Farrakhan, obviously he's going on a tirade now because they silenced him. And the Catholic Church hosted him yesterday in having him discuss about, what is happening in Chicago. So, it's quite interesting. And, obviously there's going to be a major clampdown. There'll be more false flags. You just got to be careful of these things because, as Ayam says, every time the mainstream media puts out news, you have to question it and you have to write it off as being fake.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the first. Yeah, that's the first rule, man. It's fake until proven that it's not. And that's something I didn't. It would be nice to dig a little bit into that with Jones because I agree with him that the suppression of logos is a cause, a direct. It's not just a correlation. I believe it is a direct cause, maybe not the only cause, but a direct cause to a lot of these shootings and violence that is happening. He's absolutely right. If you remove the ability to have conversation, and one way of doing that is putting people in jail that disagree with you or criticize you. If you do that, the only option left is violence. And I think that's part of the grand plan. That's part of their grand plan. They want to keep people. They don't want people to communicate. They want it to be reduced to violence because when it's reduced to violence, then they control the narrative. That's what they want.
Well, as long as it's still bread on the shelves, you're going to keep going along with it. You see that they're going to keep pumping the easy money, so there's going to be no economic crash. Stock market's going to keep going higher. You see Bitcoin making a huge rebound, which is a sign that the easy, cheap money is going to keep pumping in. Because if Bitcoin goes up, that means people are being more reckless with what finances they have.
Yeah.
So you see that it's just going to keep carrying on, and again, this kicking the can down the road, and eventually the can kicking is going to result in the bread prices being $20, and poverty is now 6 figures.
Yes, yeah. And the other thing I didn't bring up with E. Jones, and I don't think it was really necessary, but the fact that I believe that a lot of these shootings are staged. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that a lot of these shootings are staged. I don't think all of them are, but a lot of them are. And I think the reason why is if they didn't stage these shootings, there just wouldn't be that many. And then they wouldn't have the narrative to run with. They have to. And I think it defies logic. It defies logos and logic and common sense to believe that every fucking week someone is going into a school and shooting it.
It makes no sense, right? Like, why is it? It's like every week now. It's bizarre.
Yeah, no, that's why.
Where was this 20 years ago? Even after Columbine, there was still a long lull of shootings.
Yep.
So what's really going on here? And also it has a lot to do with it, being this copycats. I mentioned to you, and I have mentioned this on a previous live stream, when the whole steroid scandal in the MLB broke out. So it was Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, right? And ESPN kept pumping it over and over. Steroids. What happened? You had a huge spike in high school baseball players started abusing steroids, and they started killing themselves and hurting their bodies.
Yeah.
Why? Because they copycat what was being portrayed on ESPN and mass media.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, and as far as shootings are concerned, Columbine set the precedence, and it was that was absolutely a stage shooting. Absolutely.
I don't
100%.
see. I completely disagree with you on that.
Well, you got to go scour through Ed's evidence. It's there, 100%. I've looked at his evidence, hours of it, and yes, 100% staged. And then it was from that set the precedence. Like I said, if you didn't stage these events, they would rarely happen. They wouldn't happen enough for them to justify the violence or to justify whatever dialectic they want to create.
Well, gun control.
Gun control is another one, but it's not even. Again, and this is something that Ed talks about, is that the whole gun control argument is sort of a red herring, because they don't want necessarily to take away the guns, because the same people that are staging these shootings, they make the fucking guns. They're profiting off of these shootings, because every time it happens, there's a scare, and everybody goes and buys fucking guns.
I agree with that to a point, but long term, when the demographics change and you see that for the most part people that support the Second Amendment happen to be white Christian males, they're gonna try slowly. It is a slow roll, a slow ploy to take the guns away from the white middle class, let's say.
Yeah.
And then obviously white girls gonna be out there crying, "You have to stop it! Little Timmy got shot! Take the guns away now!"
and they'll all vote for it too.
Right, and they'll vote for it. And I knew that's why I will say that Sandy Hook was certainly staged. Whether people died or not died, that's quite debatable. But when it came to Sandy Hook, who got killed? It was predominantly little white children in a very white state, which is Connecticut, liberal state Connecticut. And obviously you get these middle class stay-home mom women driving around in Audis out there during the day protesting against gun ownership.
Yeah.
So it was perfect. I mean, obviously you're going to listen to white girl first because you're trying to, obviously have sex with her. You're going to, I think it's a good idea. Take the guns away. Oh, that's great, honey. Why don't you sleep with me now? So
yeah, absolutely.
So I saw that from a mile away when Sandy Hook happened. That was part of my big red pill moment was Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook and the war in Syria, which happened to coincide at the same time, really was my awakening. I didn't understand the war in Syria. I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? Like this war doesn't make much sense. Went from Gaddafi to Syria. How did that just happen? And it was around the same time Sandy Hook happened. So that kind of blew the door open for me for a lot of the things I started researching on.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, Rusky says Sandy Hook was staged 100%. Yeah, it's.
They knocked the school down. Did they knock down the school in Columbine?
Yeah.
They knocked the high school's still there.
Yeah.
Why did you knock down? It's the memories.
Yeah, of course.
The memories. You can't have that. Same thing with 9/11. Get the debris away.
Yeah.
Take everything away. Clean it up. Nothing to see here. No, it's hurting too many feelings. Too much emotional scarring.
Can't find
debris away.
Can't find a black box, but you can find passports in the rubble. Fucking unbelievable. Oh Christ.
But again, he danced a little bit around this whole concept of MGTOW. Is that yeah, I agree. Going your own way. What he said, staying disciplined, staying focused is 100% the correct direction for the average man to go in. But again, what are you in fact doing? You're not procreating, right? So again, white girl's gonna have doggies, and you're just gonna be a porn addicted hermit, which is what his fear is.
Yeah.
And he's 100% right. But at the same time, if you're not getting laid, your sexual outlet's gonna wind up being a TV screen.
Yeah. Well, again, that's the discipline, man. It's a discipline, and I know a lot of people think that there's nothing wrong with it, and there's actually health benefits. I think that's all bullshit. I think people just really need to have some self-control, man.
Yeah, stop touching yourself.
It's just that's it. Just have some bloody self-control. And the thing is I obviously I didn't. I tried to get to this point with Mr. Jones, but it never got there. Where I want to tell. I would love to be able to tell men to go out and have children, but that's a dangerous thing to tell them in today's climate. It's a very dangerous thing. And I think what's most important is self-discipline, and in the end, find logos yourself first, and then maybe you can find a woman that has logos. But if you can't find it first, huh?
Logos in Instagram?
Yeah, there's no logos in Instagram. There's no logos.
Jeez, logos. What are you saying, Ayam?
Yeah. But that's the truth. You have to find your logos first, and then you'll be able to better navigate what this culture war is. Like what we were born into it. We got dropped into it. We can't just snap our fingers and make it change. We have to learn to navigate it. So
he's mentioned quite often about the concept of the slaughter of cities, which is, look up those chats. Those are his earlier chats. Those are by far my favorite. And I've mentioned the story about my grandfather, where he went from living in Brooklyn and being forced out into the suburbs on Long Island, and I'm actually in favor of single family homes, but he makes a point that there's the car, okay? You're isolated inside the car. You go to your job in an office. You get in your car, which is, again, you're in an enclosed space. You drive up into your garage. You close the garage. You don't look at your surroundings. You go into your house. You close the doors. You watch your YouTube and your CNN, and you go to sleep. Rinse and repeat without actually engaging anyone in your community, which is quite fascinating and dangerous. This is part of the atomization process. People used to have porches. A lot of people like having porches. Well, what's the porch? It's you sit on your porch, and people pass by your house. You say, hey, it's the McSnoogans, or it's the McDonald's. Hey, come over here. We're having lemonade. Sit down. Those days are over. Those days are long gone. And I mentioned during the discussion on immigration how hostile other American neighbors are to one another, where they're willing to screw each other over. Prior to being on this live stream, I was talking to a fellow Catholic. We're having a beer. We're actually sitting on his porch. It's so funny I'm mentioning this. And I was telling him about the situation with my bill for the train, my train ticket bill, and I was shooting the shit, trying to figure out how do I get around from paying all this money. And he told me that, look, if you park here, and here, you're still gonna get a ticket, because the people that live in the houses next to the street where you're parking are gonna call the police on you, and they're gonna give you a ticket. I go, so let me get this straight, that even though I'm parking in a public street and I'm really not supposed to be parking on this public street, no one's going to know that I shouldn't be parking there, but the neighbors are going to call the police on me because I'm parked in an illegal zone when I'm trying to go to work and save myself $50 or $60 a month. And he goes, yeah, that's absolutely right. They're going to call the cops on you. I go, what kind of world are we living in?
Yeah.
parked in a public street, it's 12 o'clock during on a weekday. There's no one else parked in this street. My car is not bothering anybody. It's not on your private property. It's out in the open. It's not bothering you. Granted, because of some bizarre code enforcement and bizarre law where they're trying to price gouge and shove you into a parking spot where it's, again, 50, 60, sometimes up to $100, $200 a month to park in that spot, right? And I got to walk such a far distance now to get to the train station because I want to save myself $50, that the people whose house is near where my parking spot is, they're willing to call the cops and give me a $150 parking ticket. This is insane.
Yeah.
This is insane. And this is very typical. Again, this is baby boomer, and this is part of Americanism, where it's this selfishness and NIMBY. You know what NIMBY is, AM?
No.
NIMBY, not in my backyard attitude. Okay, I don't want that car in front of my house. He's there every day, Monday through Friday, parking there 9 to 5. That's against the law. He doesn't belong in this town. Right, so this is what we've become, and again, because of your own selfishness, because of your own narcissist, you're at the point where you're unable to procreate because your girl is on Snapchat and you are treating your neighbors like a pile of shit.
Yeah. Victor says in the chat, hey Victor, good to see you there, Matty. Men are not at fault for choosing to walk away. You're absolutely right; they're not at fault. Again, it's a very difficult situation, this culture war we're in, and no man should tell another man to just go out and ignore the culture war and just get married. That is a death sentence. Absolutely right. When a man interacts with a woman, it is she that chooses to submit to him, but it is he that is actually subservient to her. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that is the result of the culture war. Emasculated men, men and women confused at what gender they are, and that being promoted, sodomy and homosexuality. These are all results of this culture war that we're in. So, I know, Jones gave good advice. Find logos, man. Do that first. Then try.
It'll be interesting to see how much further he can keep going. You know what it is? I don't think they can really. I don't want to say silence him, but when you're pretty much just speaking blatant truths, I mean, you can't really silence that. I'm sorry. It's not like Ben Shapiro where he's talking smack about Palestinians and stuff, and he's just off the cuff, just airing out his discrepancies and his own personal aggression towards them. And yeah, you're gonna get in trouble for doing that because you sound like an idiot,
Yeah.
Or Alex Jones, where he's claiming that Hillary Clinton's eating babies that have been boiled in a golden goblet.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but you got to understand, like he's been on so many different channels. If you guys are interested, go to his channel, and he mirrors everything he does. Just go through the list. It's incredible how many people have had him on, interviewed him.
Him doing Africa, Julius Nereu, the cantonization of Julius Nereu, I think that was fantastic.
Yep.
When he talks about other things other than Jews and and Americanism, he's got other really fantastic chats. Trump and Russiagate, that was a really good chat he did. I thought that was fascinating. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I've been following him for a really long time. It's really great that he's become much more popular. I was one of his first subscribers. I was like one of the first thousands. Now he's up to 30,000. I think he's definitely going to keep climbing the numbers as far as subscriptions goes. No doubt about it. If he keeps at it, especially going on people like Owen Benjamin's shows and Rush's show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he knows more about these things than they do.
Yep.
And someone that sits there and reads books 8 hours straight.
Writes books 8 hours straight.
Right. Yeah, exactly. 100%.
If you're going to write a book, you got to spend a lot of time researching. So, and the other thing, he's got his own channel. His own website. They can't shut that down. So even if YouTube gets rid of him, he's still got his website, and he'll be on other people's channels for a long, long time to come. So it'd be very hard for them to shut him up.
Well, again, the bigger question is what are you supposed to do about the women's situation? And there's just no answer.
No.
answer unless you go to TFM's channel.
Yeah, he didn't. I doubt he would get into any specific solutions, but overall, generally, I think he's kind of saying, he's like, lose the lust first. You'll gain control of your mind again, because it really does. It fogs your head. So he's right. Lose the lust. I mean, that's not like a specific solution that's going to help solve a specific problem, but that's certainly not going to make it any worse for yourself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, lose the lust. But again, once you lose the lust, there's something that's going to fill the vacuum for women. You see what I'm saying? This is where the doggy comes in. This is where, again, interracial marriage is on the uptake. I couldn't believe how many interracial couples I saw today. I'm like, damn, there's a lot. It's definitely a lot more than it used to be. And women are letting themselves go. They're just becoming more not sexually attractive.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I rail against, I'm not a big fan of interracial marriage, especially when it's being socially engineered. Obviously, if the guy is cool and everything, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it's been socially engineered, and then you look at the women that these guys are dating, like, I wouldn't touch that. She's huge. She's obese.
Yeah.
She's tremendous.
Yeah.
So you look at lesbians. How unattractive the overriding majority of lesbians are.
Yeah.
You just let yourself go. You let yourself go, and you rendered yourself not attractive.
Unfuckable.
Unfuckable. How to bring down the patriarchy we eat.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Stop chasing and worshiping tail, Rusky says. It's from the devil against Lois. Well, yeah. This is the thing. If you focus on kind of losing the lust yourself and focus on self-improvement, at least you're going to be able to not only stay, because Western women are gone, man. They're lost. They're lost. They got their dogs and their cats. They're completely addicted. They're completely narcissistic, addicted to their own image and attention. Very few, very, very few would you be able to find that would make an actual wife. So, get your own shit together, and then, as far as Logos is concerned, and then maybe you'll be able to spot them, the good ones. That's right. That's if you choose to go down that path. But you're not going to fix women. There's no way, man. No way. I mean, women, I think, in the end, if enough men are just improving themselves, enough more women will start to fall in line eventually. But don't count on it happening in our lifetime.
No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's why you got to stay wise. You got to stay disciplined. You got to save your money. Mm-hmm. You got to be prepared for what's coming around the corner next.
Yes.
Just know that inflation is going to keep. That's my big concern right now is inflation. I mean, they're just going to keep dropping interest rates, and they're just going to keep pumping that money. And before you know it, a Toyota Corolla is now $60,000. Loaf of bread is now $15. A gallon of milk is $10. I mean, this is where it's really going, and this only benefits a very small amount of people at the very top with inflation. It just destroys any middle class you have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I don't know. That's a scary thing, man. That is a very scary thing.
It is. I mean, it's something, but you have to put it into perspective. I mean, you just be prepared. Know which way the wind's blowing. This is basically. There's no answers, and no one's able to give answers. This is the most frustrating thing for me, is that no one has. We have answers because we live in reality. Okay, I have answers. Ayam has answers. You know what? The guy around the corner that's a plumber, he has answers. But at the very top, they're complicit.
Yeah.
I was listening to who was it? It was a conservative woman. I actually was a big supporter of Joni Ernest. Joni Ernest, who is a Senate woman from the state of Ohio. She is the only person that actually spoke out against Agenda 21. One of the only people, and in fact, she was planning to be Trump's VP, and then she backed down saying, I don't want to be the vice president to Donald Trump. And 2 weeks ago, when Trump was going to pick the Fed chairman, this guy named Moore, who basically stated that, look, if men make less money than women, it's going to have very detrimental consequences to the country and to society.
Yeah.
And she went out there and says, "You can't have him. You can't have him. Look what he said about women."
Yeah.
Well, no, he's stating an obvious fact. And who are you as a conservative woman who is against Agenda 21, hasn't said anything about Agenda 21 since you became a politician, and now all of a sudden you open your mouth and you bash this guy who might become the Fed chairman, who stated an obvious fact because you found what he said to be sexist. When it's crazy, man. I can't believe this insanity that's taking place. It's crazy.
Well, I don't trust conservative women either, man. A lot of them make their way into sort of men's spaces too, going, "I'm a conservative woman. I'm on your side." That's bullshit. They're not on your side. There's very, very few women out there, especially that are trying to be kind of at the forefront of politics and media. There's very, very few that are genuine.
It was an emotional reaction. Again, hasn't said a word for years since being elected. Now all of a sudden she speaks, and what is it? It's against a common, an obvious fact.
Yeah. Well, one thing that really kind of hit home for me about that, and I always knew that, and talking about this woman's stance, how she's suddenly silent, and sort of the character of women, even conservative women. As a MGTOW, you have to understand, I often join men's rights groups on Facebook under my various pseudonyms because I like to mine them for articles and information. I don't usually interact very often, but I like to mine these men's rights for articles, for content, right, for our talk. And there was this one group that I was in. I'm not in it anymore. I got kicked out, and I'll explain what happened. Is a man posted, and I was just dumb luck that I happened to see it and thought, oh, I'll respond to this. But a man posted in the group. He goes, "Why are there so many women in this group? Can't we have a space for men?" And so I'm going, and I agreed. I just said, yes, I agree with you. I think that men's rights groups should have, I don't want to tell them how to run their page, but so I made the comment, and suddenly just all of these women pretending to be men just came out of the woodwork. A lot of these men's rights groups are run by women, and men on those groups think, oh, this is good for men. No, it's not.
Right.
And I simply agreed with his statement, and suddenly all these women, and they often have a profile pic of them and the guy they're with. We support men. We want you to have a voice, so we want you to have your children. It's bullshit. As soon as someone said, hey, what about like a space that men can talk without the constant overwatch of women, boom, every woman on that group came out of the woodwork, criticized me for agreeing with them. I started to argue with them. Within 3 posts, I was kicked out. It's unbelievable, man. That's why I don't talk in those groups at all. I just mine them for articles because, man, and that's why we don't have women here in the chats. Sorry, you can't. Moment you open that floodgate, it's game over. So watch out for men's rights groups, gentlemen. They're not what they seem to be. I would say
it is actually very disappointing. Some of the MGTOW channels and guys that you'd view on the right side of politics constantly having these live streams, and there's like 3 women and 1 guy, and it's just them cackling back and forth. I think this. Oh my God! Like God.
I know, man. I know. I mean, you if you really want to have a peace of mind and really have a voice and exchange ideas, you cannot have women in these men's groups. You cannot. You need to tell them to get the fuck out. Unfortunately, a lot of these men's rights groups are started by women. It's insanity. Absolute insanity. That's why with the Honey Badgers, the only time I watch it is if it's just Brian talking to another dude. Anytime those cackling witches get on there, I just cannot handle it. It's like scraping your fingernails on a chalkboard to me.
Belligerent.
Mm-hmm.
Belligerent.
Yeah.
A lot of them are just not. It's unfortunate that just just so many of them are just not intelligent. Just not intelligent. And to make a true conservative woman, she has to be exposed to something violent or some type of being deprived of a need, like being deprived of the house, being deprived of food, being exposed to like famine or war or extreme poverty. That really changes the mindset of a woman. Like I always point out to my Cambodian girlfriend. She lived really poor, and she's pretty conservative on a lot of different things. Why? Because she knows what it's like to grow up with nothing. When I was with her, staying at her house, there she is. There's no power in the house that she built, and I'm crashing at her place, and there she is with 2 alligator clips hooking up a car battery to get power going into the house, so she has a light and something to charge her iPad with. I'm like, this is pretty extreme, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. My teaches a bit of character. Victor says the only way for men to effectively affect change is just walk away. I totally agree with that. I mean, I think we're at a level in the culture war now where men have to just stop participating in it. Because they do. The culture war needs men's participation. It needs men to be emasculated. It needs men to be lustful. It needs men to be simps. And
I tell you what, man, I was out last night. Guess what? You know where I was? I was in Chelsea District, Sodomite Mecca yesterday. I actually got to meet up with my Cambodian neighbor. He's a guy from Philadelphia. In fact, he surprised me. Shot me a message. He's like, "Yo, Lamprey, I'm in New York. Come and see me." And I'm like, "Where are you?" He goes, I'm in Chelsea District with your friends, quote unquote friends, meaning homosexuals." And I'm like, "Oh, dude, what are you doing down there?" He goes, "Come on, let's walk around and make fun of sodomites and get drunk." I go, "That sounds like a great idea." And I kept sending the entire night. I'm drunk texting Ayam all these photos. You saw them, right?
Yeah.
Big gay ice cream, right? Yeah. How about this one? Doggy plastic surgery.
Jesus.
Doggy plastic surgery. Laser treatment for dogs, guys. Next to the big gay ice cream shop. Okay? Fuck. And we're just walking around just dying laughing, just being obnoxious to everyone on the street. It was just great. And it's just like this is it, and while I was there, beautiful women all over the place. No men, no one holding their hands. It's a group of women, right? All of them just cackling, dressed in scandalous clothing. And then there's another group of, straight men just, talking about how much the Mets are, horrible. And, the two just can't seem to... they don't mesh, and because they live in total opposite worlds from one another. This one's watching a tranny get testing new makeups on YouTube, and he's watching sports. And the reason why the two of them can't really meet again is because they're both in two total opposite spectrum camps in just what they like and what they want to do, which pales in comparison to what it was in 1960s, 1970s, even into the 80s, where the two sexes actually got along and enjoyed the same type of things. They enjoyed the same type of music. You can't say that anymore, okay? Because they don't. The two sexes do not enjoy the same things anymore. She wants to watch this movie, you want to watch a different movie. Yeah. Well, 20, 30, no, not 20, maybe 40, 50 years ago, they actually did enjoy the same type of movies, okay? And when that happens and there's no need for the both sexes to actually, in fact, procreate, because, in fact, what do you need to procreate for? What do you need children for at this day and age? You don't need children to plow your fields. You don't need children to take care of you in your older age, because you have things such as pensions and Social Security and different types of retirement accounts and things like that. So what do you actually need children for? Now women treat children like they're a status symbol. It's now, I have enough money that I actually can have children. Well, wait a second. Well, what just happened here? Children are now lauded as a status symbol with Westerners. Yeah. Think about that.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Ah, man. Especially for women, that's how it's a status symbol. It's crazy.
Well, tell the listeners what you showed me earlier this week.
What's that? Which one?
Oh, come on,
What, I
please,
showed you a
dude.
bunch of stuff. What was it?
I know the best one was how women are putting makeup on before they go
Oh,
into labor.
yeah. You sent that to me, didn't you?
No, you sent
Oh,
it to me.
did I
dude.
send it to you? Okay.
You sent it to me.
Yeah, man.
Dude, please tell the listeners because that was horrifying for me.
Hold on, let me find the actual article because I bookmarked it. But yeah,
It's great. We sent so many articles back and forth to one another. I don't even know which one to cover because they're all just so good.
I know, man. Yeah, you're never short of material. Where was that one again? Hold on, give me a second to look for this, guys.
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Abuse mothers action. Any voice Winnie the Pooh. I've got so many goddamn articles, man. I should organize my bookmarks better.
I usually organize them once a week.
Yeah, I've been organizing a few, but not all of them. Fuck, man. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I forgot. I didn't know if that's the other thing. We send so many articles back and forth. I don't know if I sent it to you or you sent it to me. This one article. I'll share the screen with you guys so you can see it here. Share screen. Get rid of that. From contractions to contouring, women are applying makeup during labor and bringing glam squads to the delivery room due to pressure to look good for social media just hours after giving birth. What the fuck? Women are getting dolled up, apparently around the world, in the hospital right before giving birth. Half get a pedicure, manicure beforehand, blow dry or spray tan. One Australian woman said painting sister-in-law's face relaxed her during birth. Mothers feel pressure to look good in first social post 3 hours after birth. Look at this shit, man. I mean, this has got to be the peak narcissism of women. I mean, the thoughterry doesn't get.
No, what you're doing is putting her ahead of the birth of a child, of a baby.
Yes.
You have to outshine your baby. Think about that. She has to outdo the child. The baby. I don't know what you want to call it. The infant.
Yeah, the baby.
So when you have the newborn, so when the newborn grows to be old and wants to see baby pictures, it's going to be of the mother, not of the newborn.
Jesus Christ. Look at this picture. This California mother took advantage of a, quote, false alarm that saw her admitted to hospital early to give herself a little makeover. Jesus Christ. Like, and look, this is the tip of the iceberg, and this is the reason why, I wouldn't. It'd be interesting to get E. Jones's opinion on this stuff, but he's beyond us on this stuff. But this is why, like, you can't say to a man, these women are giving birth. Do you think these women are going to make good wives and mothers? Please, man. This is thoughtery.
It'll be bagel bites. Bagel bites for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the child. Pop-Tarts, frozen dinners. Child will be stuck watching, playing Minecraft. The child will be retarded in its brain development, its ability to become creative. I pity my little brother. I can't play any music for him. I can't do anything with my little brother because my stepmother ruins every type of time. Every time I want to show my little brother something interesting, she is in the way, just blocking it. And she just isolates my brother, keeps him secluded in another room with the Bible and B-rated Jesus movies, and she ruins my relationship with my brother. And she, long term, when he's 30 and I'm 60, or I don't know what the age, 25 years, he'll be 30, I'll be 50, 55, I'm just going to have really not much of a relationship with him because I wasn't able to really, interact with him,
Yeah. That's sad, man. I'm just gonna quickly go to some of these comments here that let me go back here. There was a couple I saw. Oh yeah, MGTOW Warrior said years ago I made this rule for game day: no women, no children, no exceptions. I found out very quickly how many cooter whipped friends I had. It's true, man. Like you, if you put your foot down and say something like that, a lot of your friends aren't going to show up. Wife isn't going to allow that shit. It's pretty sad. Logic Win says hard to find red pill friends, and it's absolutely true. Like I after I came back from, I got red pilled in Asia, so when I finally came back to Canada, I couldn't. I respect. I have to respect my friends. I don't. They don't affect me. I don't affect them. But I cannot spend time with a lot of these old friends. It's impossible. But going back to when we were discussing a little bit about Islam with E. Jones, it's funny because I was just listening to Sam Garens earlier today, and he was saying, mentioning about the truth, and in the Quran it says this isn't an exact quote, but it says when you're pursuing the truth, the logos of the truth, when you're pursuing the truth, among your enemies are your friends and family. And that's just a truthful observation. If you're on that path of truth or logos, as Jones has coined, you will find among your enemies your friends and even family. So with that advice, you can't share that truth with them. You can try, but you have to be careful. You have to understand that you might harm yourself if you just assume that your friends and family are going to be all on board with you kind of seeking this truth, because chances are they won't. So you do have to be careful, man. And as a MGTOW man, you have to be careful. Don't just walk blind through the battlefield of the culture war. You got to understand that you're going to have enemies, and some of those enemies will be very close to you. So be very, very careful. That would be my advice.
All right, man. Why don't we end it? We'll call it a night.
Yeah, I've done 2 hours.
That was a good chat. Cheddarini next week. We'll talk about the Ectobus reality, and we'll keep in touch throughout the week, and we'll talk to Ed, see what he actually wants to discuss, and I'll dig up some research on what it is he wants to do. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in. I still got to edit this and send it to Joan, so I don't want to go too long either. But thanks for tuning in, guys. It was a little bit of shorter than usual, but we will be back next weekend, and I'm hoping, I've already talked to Ed Chiarini. He should be on. So if you guys are interested in more of the actor-based reality, please come and check that out. There's some crazy shit going on in those conversations. All right, so anyway, take care, guys. Talk to you later.